Greetings Internet, all dudes, dudettes, and all other configurations of being. It's your old buddy Oxleymations here again with another interesting early morning. We're going to be talking about the Five Nights book, and The Silver Eyes by Scott Cawthon. So this book centers around the main character, Charlotte, who all of her friends call Charlie, and her group of friends, which I just kind of mentioned, who are getting together for a reunion I cannot talk. They're getting ready for a reunion on the anniversary of the deaths from Freddy Fazbear's Diner. So yeah, it's weird. Essentially, they're all teenagers, but they're like 17, 18, old enough that they can drive and stuff. So it starts off with her coming back to town and going to revisit her old family homestead, which it turns out that Charlie is actually the daughter of the guy who came up with the Freddy Fazbear's franchise. The Freddy Fazbear's franchise. It's a franchise! Anyway, who came up with that. And it turns out that her brother, Michael, I believe the book calls him, is Golden Freddy. Yeah, I'm not making this up. It's in the book. So, oh crap, I should have said. Spoilers, if you don't want to know, if anyone out there wants to read this book and does not want any spoilers, you can skip this video. But yeah, it involves her and her group of friends getting together after that for a little reunion, because apparently some of the parents of one of the children are starting up starting up not a foundation, a fund, a college fund type thing for their child who wanted to go to an art school. So basically, her and her group of friends come back together. At first it's like old times, they just kind of get back together and, oh hey, how's it going, what you doing, blah blah blah, even though it's been 10 years since they last saw each other, and they just kind of, try to pick up the pieces and, try and revive their friendship from all those years ago. And hijinks ensue. Apparently their one friend, the one who never left the town, which now that I think about it, this kind of reminds me of Stephen King's It. Just a little bit. But yeah. So they come back into town. The one friend who never left the town, when one of them asks, whatever happened to Freddy Fazbear's Diner? I don't know, but it's still there, I guess. I think they tore it down for a shopping mall. What? Turns out they never tore it down. They built the shopping mall around Freddy Fazbear's. And they apparently were just going to seal it off within. Sorry, I had to check and make sure the music was still going. Anyway, and sealed up the building within the confines of this big mall. So it turns out that apparently no one wants to, franchise out to this mall, which has basically been abandoned for the last couple of years. So Charlie and her friends decide, well gosh, it's a great idea to actually sneak in and try and find our way back into Freddy's, that place where all those murders took place all those years ago. Let's do it! So, again, hijinks ensue. They find their way into the old building, and while they're looking around, they stumble across, the main stage. The building apparently has not been touched since the events of the games. Where the 5 kids were murdered. So everything's still there. They wind up going back, leaving the place a couple of times and coming back, and surprisingly there's a security guard at the mall. The abandoned mall. So, like, the third time they go back, the guy is, like, right there. He's figured out that, hey, you kids, I could basically just go on ahead and get y'all arrested for trespassing and stuff, blah, blah, blah. They wind up convincing the guy to go in with them, because this was going to be their final time visiting Freddy's. So like I said, they convince him to go in with them, and when he goes in with them this time, things start going funny. Like, underneath each of the show stages, Pirate Cove and the main stage, there happens to be a control panel to actually, get the animatronics going and stuff, and like security cameras and whatnot, in this little room located under each of the stages. So he winds up figuring out how to get the animatronics going, which none of them had actually been able to do. Like, they'd hit a button, turn a knob, and they'd just like twitch and do like one of a bunch of motions like that, jerky, spastic, whatnot. This guy just straight up walks in there, studies the control panel a bit while they're screwing around with it. He's like, "Can I have a try?" They're like, "Sure." He sits down and he whips out this keyboard, which is off to the side that none of them even knew still worked. Again, this is according to the story. He just kind of like pulls it over, tick, 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 turns a couple knobs and stuff, and boom, the animatronics start working like they did back 10 years ago when the restaurant was still going. And not one of the characters, well actually Charlie kind of has her suspicions, but most of the characters just don't even really care. So he's screwing around with that, gets all the robots going and whatnot, and they're doing their pre-programmed dances and stuff, blah 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 blah. There's no music though, apparently, because it makes it spookier. So a couple of the kids go back out, well, a couple of the group goes back out from under the stage and are standing there watching them do their thing, while security guard, I think he calls himself Dave. Yeah, his name's Dave, according to the book. Spoilers, it's not actually his name. So again, they're being fascinated with the robots, but then the robots start acting funny. Like, they're flailing around and stuff, eyes going all kooky, jaws slapping open and shut, like, flailing and stuff. Bonnie's arm, which was attached to his guitar, like, breaks free, and he's just, like, flailing about. Snaps a bolt loose from the stage, which, according to this, sounds like a gunshot going off, like, and one of the characters, Charlotte, I believe it is, Charlie, acquaints it to apparently like the robots are trying to get away from something. Blah blah blah, moving the story along. While they're focused on this and they're freaking out, excuse me. While they're freaking out about the robots, Dave sneaks off into Charlie's dad's office, which had been boarded up with the rest of the place and everything was still in there, and he finds a suit. As many of you may recall, in Five Nights 4, there's this character called Springtrap. Yeah, another big spoiler here. Dave is Springtrap. So anyway, he finds the suit, steals away with one of the kids while wearing the suit, while one of the other characters' little brother, Jason, watches on in pure terror as, Bonnie took him! Bonnie took Carlton! Carlton is the name of the character who gets taken by Dave. So, he gets stolen away, and as he's being taken away, the others have just decided, screw this, we're leaving, because they're too freaked out because all the animatronics are going funny. They leave, they go back to their cars and whatnot, and Jason's like bawling his eyes out, like, we've got to go back, he got Carlton, Bonnie got Carlton. So yeah, he's all freaking out and stuff, and they're like, whoa, calm down, remember when we were passing the stage on the way out, Bonnie was still there, he was freaking out, but he was still there, So they wind up calming him down. They after a while though, they do realize that Carlton isn't with them. So then they start freaking out. They're like, we gotta go back in for him. And then the girl's Jason's older sister, crap, I can't remember what her name is, but his older sister is like, there is no way I'm taking him back in there, which is a smart move. Bad juju, don't go in there. So after that, they wind up driving back off into town and finding this cop in front of a movie theater they're freaking out, telling him like, oh, you gotta come with us, you gotta come with us. All this bad stuff's going on. The things happen, blah blah. And then when they try to say it calmly, he's like, okay, now what's going on? And then Jason's like, Bonnie got him! Bonnie got Carlton! And he's like, wait, who's this Bonnie? Who is she? And they're like, it's not a she, it's a he. Freddy Fazbear's. Well, he's like, Freddy Fazbear's. And then he starts, thinking, are these guys just screwing with me? Blah, blah, blah. So they wind up convincing him to go back with them. But he doesn't want to actually go inside the building, so he winds up calling his supervisor, which turns out to be this Carlton dude's dad. Yeah, his dad's on the police force, and apparently he was involved in the investigation of the murders at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Yeah. So they wind up going back to his place, and he's convinced them that, it's probably just Carlton playing a trick. Back when he first started going to this school in another town, after the murders and whatnot, and we didn't want to be associated with this piece of crap little city, a Hurricane, which is the name of the city. We sent him over there, and for almost a year, he had everyone convinced he had a twin brother. Talking like that. So they all believe him that it's probably just Carlton playing a prank. And the next morning, when Carlton still hasn't shown up, this is when they finally realize, oh crap, something might be wrong. Oh no. Even though they already knew something was wrong, but they just didn't want to believe it because of the fact that, it was supposed to be a happy, fun celebration, get together, blah, 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 catch up after all these years. So the next morning, while they're sitting at the dinner table, or the breakfast table, I guess, Carlton's mother comes into the place. Oh, I forgot to mention, well, I think I just mentioned, they went back to Carlton's place for the evening to wait for him to come home, at his dad's insistence. So, they're at Carlton's place for the night. The next morning, they're sitting there having their breakfast, which Carlton made them, what was it, pancakes, I guess? So they're chowing down over pancakes, nom 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 nom. And Carlton's mom comes in and she's like, honey, who are all these people? Oh, you remember Carlton, right? These are his friends. And it goes off, lists each of their names and whatnot. And then they're like, then she's like, oh, okay, so blah, blah, blah. And then someone mentions the fact that, well, has Carlton come back yet? And instantly his mother is like, is it one of Carlton's pranks again? And then one of them's like, yeah, last night, Freddy's. And the second someone mentions Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, she just like zeroes in on them, focuses in, all of her attention's on them. She stops whatever she was doing, like stops drinking her coffee, sets it down and is focused. They finish and go through their entire story of what happened, and Mrs. Carlton, or Carlton's mother, just like, just instantly focuses in on the dad, and she's like, why in the world didn't you wake me up for this? And he's like, it's just him playing one of his jokes. We do not joke about Freddy's. You were there that night. You know what happened. Get on the phone right now and call the police. And he's like, I am the police. Well, then get on it. So she winds up getting Carlton's dad to get his butt in gear, and they all go back to Freddy Fazbear's. Now, something I forgot to mention, when the cop that they found in town, I still can't remember his name, when they got him to come back with them, the one door that they had found into Freddy Fazbear's Pizza had been chained up when they finally went back. Now, originally when they went there was just like this big, heavy metal shelving thing in the way with a bunch of crap on it. But when they got there this time, they like yank it out of the way and whatnot, and there's these big, heavy chains that look like they've been there forever. So that's why he didn't believe them in the fact that, Carlton was in there and whatnot. So, skipping ahead to now, they go back to Freddy's, and when they get there, it turns out that someone welded a big piece of metal across the door so no one can get in again. So, they wind up having to find their way in through an air vent on top of the Freddy Fazbear's building, which turns out there's a crawl space between the top of the mall that's above the building and the roof of Freddy Fazbear's. They get in, they find a skylight, blah blah blah, they get back into Freddy's. Which, another part of the reason why they went back is it turns out that Jason, the little kid, wound up going back there himself because he's like, why won't anyone listen to me? God, I know he's in there. I saw Bonnie take him. So they go back, and because whoop, there's another alarm of mine. Turn off. Anyway, so they go back to Freddy's, and they find out that, or they see that Jason went in, because there's apparently a vent on the side of the building that was only just big enough for a kid like his size to get in. Yeah, more plot. So, like I said, they see this, then they find their way up onto the roof of the building through a ventilation thing. And when they get in there, they're looking around trying to find a place to get in. Yeah, it's really dark and whatnot. They got their flashlights going. They get into the building through a skylight that leads into one of the back rooms, where a bunch of the Freddy Fazbear's suits and costumes and stuff just so happen to be hanging out. So, yeah. Around this point, Carlton, who apparently was not killed by the Fazbear killer, Golden Bonnie, Springtrap, whichever you want to call him, wakes up and he finds himself like constricted in this thing. He's trying to look around and stuff, but there's like something poking the sides of his neck and he can't look around very much. And we get to hear Dave's voice again as he tells the kid, you don't want to be moving around like that, kid. And Carlton's like, trying to look around and whatnot. He's like, who are you? And then he's like, because apparently he got bludgeoned in the back of the head and has a concussion and blah, blah, blah. So he's trying to be all macho, like, who are you? What are you doing? He's like, kid, you really don't want to do that. But he's saying it like, kid, you really do not want to do that. I'm telling you. So it turns out that Carlton has been stuffed into the torso section of one of the suits. The Springtrap suits. As in spring locking mechanisms. You guys know the deal. If one of them were to come loose, they'd all come loose and done. So, yeah, so it turns out he's stuck in one of those, and Dave basically just frickin' confesses to the murders to Carlton. For no apparent reason, because he just knows that Carlton is going to die. So, yeah. Anyway, back to the other group. They find their way back into the building. They're inside the building after falling through the skylight. Or climbing through the skylight, I should mention. And apparently also at this point, they start to realize things are not as they should be with the animatronics. Not that they didn't realize that the night before, but now they're disappearing from the stage, like in the game. So again, hijinks ensue. They're sneaking around the building, and they wind up being, attacked by the animatronics. There's actually a pretty cool scene that I'd read it to you, but I do not know what page it's on, where Bonnie is chasing after Charlotte, and corners her in a bathroom. But yeah, the description of just his big padded feet flump, 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 flump along the bathroom floor, just opening up the doors. And then when Charlotte's sitting there on her, on the toilet, she actually like backs up, gets on the tank and whatnot. She's got her feet hidden on the toilet seat and all that. And she happens to look down at the gap between the door, and there's Bonnie's big plastic eye just staring in at her. And she's like, starts freaking out. She ducks down on the floor, whatnot, starts trying to crawl away. And while she's ducked down on the floor and whatnot, out of Bonnie's range, there's this really suspenseful, to me anyway, suspenseful scene in the book where she suddenly just hears like this weird ripping kind of crackly sound, and she looks underneath the stall where she's stuck at in time to see Bonnie's hand come down, just plod on the floor, and just sees his head come down like so as he bends over and looks under the stall. I just thought that was really neat. But anyway, this video is already, oh crap, it's almost 20 minutes long. So to wrap this up really quick, they find their friend, they manage to avoid most of the robots. Anyway, they find Jason in Pirate's Cove, and they save him and whatnot. The security guard, they find Carlton, or Charlotte finds Carlton, frees him from the Springtrap suit, and then old Golden Bonnie himself, Dave, who apparently turns out was Charlie's father's partner at the original Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. And turns out he was a much bigger guy back then, but now he's just this little scrawny dude and whatnot. Sorry, I keep picking at my ear, but it itches. Ooh, I am so sorry about that. Anyway, focus. Gotta wrap this up real quick. So, all of that happens. They save Carlton, or she saves Carlton just in time for Dave to come back in. She bludgeons him over the back of the head and knocks him unconscious. They go to leave. They can't leave because all the robots and because the main door is shut and because the skylight they went through they can't get back through because it's such a small opening. So they go back. Luckily Dave is still unconscious because she knocked him out. So he's still in there. They tie him up with a bunch of extension cords they find. They wake him up, but he refuses to talk. Then he gestures over to the Bonnie Springtrap head. She puts it on him. Then he just decides to start talking because, creepy factor. So he tells them there's no way out. He knows there's no way out. They're stuck with him forever. Starts talking like a creepy bugger. And how they're going to be stuck there with him and the children forever. So again, they have to make their way around, trying to find their way out, ducking and dodging the robots. And they do wind up finding a way back out. Well, no, they don't. And apparently, while they're off trying to do this, Dave winds up getting loose from the extension cords because as good as Charlie, I'm just going to call her Charlie because that's what the book calls her, as good as Charlie tied them, they were extension cords. It's hard to get those things really tight according to the book. So he was able to just easily, and get free from them. So he does. He starts chasing them around again. And after a while, the robots are starting to corner everybody. And Bonnie winds up, faking us out by getting Dave cornered in the office, because he's standing there in the office. He's got the door locked because Charlotte and them were going to go in there and try and hide, but because of the fact that Dave had wound up getting in there first, he was already in there, door locked, blah blah blah. Taking too long to explain this. So sorry, it's early. He gets cornered by Bonnie, and he's like, "Ah!" Screaming and whatnot. And then it focuses back to those three. Later on in the book, they think this is the end. Oh crap, we're all gonna die. They're huddled in the middle. The robots, Bonnie, Chica, Freddy, and Foxy are just, lumbering in, getting ready to attack. And just as they're about to, there's this ungodly wham on the wall behind them. So the robots stop. And everyone just kind of looks up over in that direction, after they realize the robots have stopped. And there's another couple loud whacks and slams and stuff. And in through the wall next to the door, which had been welded shut, comes Carlton's father with a sledgehammer he was using to bust out the bricks. So, yay! He winds up breaking his way in. And they're all super excited, and, they're all about to leave and whatnot. And suddenly Charlotte is grabbed by the throat by a pair of big, yellow, fuzzy hands. That's right, Dave in his Springtrap suit is back for one last scare. So, while he's standing there, he's like, "Drop your weapon, officer, or she dies." And he, just tightens his grip on her for a second to make sure that Officer Carlton's dad. I really wish I could remember their names right now, but it's too early. Officer Carlton's dad is like, okay, drops his weapon and whatnot. It's like, good, now you're all going to listen to me and we're all going to step back in here. And Charlotte's like, earlier in the book, when I was talking about how they were talking to Dave about, finding a way out of there, he said that he knew that they weren't going to get out of there, and they're like, well, you're not going to get out of here alive either. He's like, oh, yes, I will, because I'm one of them. Bonnie, Freddy, blah, blah, blah. So, Charlotte, just throws her hands inside the suit, up around the neck of the guy, and she's like, you want to be one of them? Be one of them. And she triggers the spring locks. She just goes, click, pulls her hands back out really quick, and it's kind of a gruesome death. It's not explained in great detail, but there's the crackling and popping and snapping of all the things going off. The second she triggers them, he drops her because he's like, oh crap, and he goes to move or something, and you just hear all the snaps and pops and squelches and as all the mechanisms spring loose and squish him. So they wind up actually getting to leave. They look back one last time and they see the robots, Bonnie, Chica, Freddy, and Foxy, dragging away Springtrap, Dave. And then the 4 or 5 characters, I forget. Okay, for pity's sake, I'm just going to say 6. So the 6 characters wind up going off. Carlton turns out that he's fine, and he did actually have a concussion. So everyone gets patched up. They spend one last night in Hurricane, and the next morning they scatter to the winds. And that's basically the entire book. There's a bunch I left out for time purposes, but that's it. So, yeah. The Silver Eyes. It's an interesting little read if you're into that kind of thing. And if not, I still suggest giving it a look. You probably don't have to read the whole thing, because, that's quite a big book, even though the words are spaced interestingly, I'll say. But, instead of making this an early morning, I'm just going to upload this later on today, because this took way too long and I don't have enough time to edit everything together. So, thank you all so much for watching. And as always, Cowabunga, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.